The significant funding crisis across further and higher education in the Republic is matched in Northern Ireland, with their situation made ever dire by the repeated calls on Education Authority to make additional cuts in spending. And despite the significant efforts of this committee to address the key problem of funding by way of its very comprehensive and commendable report on future funding of higher education, those of us working within the sector, we can tell you that the situation remains largely unchanged. Well, regrettably, I can advise the committee that despite the acceptance by government of the recommendations contained within the future funding report, it is evident to those of us in the Irish Federation of University Teachers and in the Congress of Trade Unions that the necessary urgency required to tackle key issues such as widespread precarity of employment across the sector have been largely absent to date. Again, we can't hope to build a sustainable sector on the basis of widespread insecurity. The Employment Control Framework for the Higher Education Sector 2011 to 2014, that's its full title, remains the go-to excuse to explain why vacancies are not being filled properly and why short fixed-term contracts of employment are being preferred over permanent contracts, even in those cases where the vacancies are permanent. And the persistence of what is ultimately a self-defeating policy for the sector creates a myriad of fundamental problems for all who work and study in further and higher education. Thus, student-staff ratios have not improved and currently stand at 23:1, in stark contrast with the OECD average of 15:1, with many of the staff being engaged on precarious employment contracts paid only for the hours that they spend in front of the students. Recommendation number 9 from the Future Funding Report points out that the Employment Control Framework is completely arbitrary and needs to be abolished. Yet, here we are nearly a year later, it remains in place, impeding the progress of many positive initiatives undertaken across the sector, including progress on issues relating to North-South enrolment, as set out and identified by this committee. IFUT and the Congress of Trade Unions recognise and share the ambitions of this committee, but we do feel compelled to highlight the urgency with which the issue of sustainable funding, as this is the root of many of the problems evident in our sector, and as already noted, acts as a barrier to progress of essential initiatives such as those being discussed here today. We look forward to continued dialogue and engagement with you on this issue. Thanks for your attention, and I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss any other points.